This episode is brought to you by Barefoot Dreams, guys. Do you see how cozy this studio is? I got cozy chic fabric everywhere. This stuff is like sitting on a cloud. Here they are right here. And the cool thing is, because you guys are here hearing about them from me, you can get 15% off your first purchase by putting the promo code POPUP15 at barefootdreams.com. They got blankets, pillows, robes. I mean, everything comfy you could ever imagine. They got furniture now. I got a candle here. So many great things. Make sure you check them out at barefootdreams.com.
People come to me at rock bottom. People come to me at crisis. Nobody comes to me, well, now it's changing, but nobody comes to me when they're thriving.
Right.
People come to me for help. So I created a set of practical tools, practical spirituality, ways to talk to people that helps them come out of those crises, come out of that pain.
Yes, hello. Welcome back to the Pop-Up with Paul and Friends. Guys, you're here, you subscribed, you clicked. I don't know how you got here, but I'm grateful you're here because you get to listen and have fun with me in here. And as you know on the show, I'm always talking to people I'm interested in. People I think are amazing, comedians sometimes spiritual guidance, spiritual guiders. I don't know what to title this guy, but we were talking about biohacking earlier, and what came to mind was like spiritual hacking or like
soul hacking.
Soul hacking. So I think it's a new genre that he's created, and I'm so pumped for you guys to get to know him. Put your hands together for Rabbi Iggy, everybody. We like to pump you up with nobody here when we start, you know?
Hey, that's how you start. 1 becomes 2, becomes 4.
Yeah. Do you title is it soul hacking? Is that the title?
It's one of the titles. It's one of the things I do.
Yeah.
Because we don't spend time thinking about the inner part of ourselves. I mean, yes, biohacking is really cool and important and stuff. And there's a lot of, in the last, 15, 20 years, sort of wellness and biohacking and all that, and the pills and the supplements and stuff.
Yeah.
But what about your insights? How about who you are? How about your sense of self?
Yeah. We're so shallow, though. Like, why? Of course, biohacking and like your skin and how you look jump in an ice bath for 5 hours.
That's
and
right.
You're going to look younger and feel... We're a culture of looks more than we are about how we really feel inside, don't you think?
Absolutely. And here's the thing, right? Because I was thinking about this when this whole biohacking things started, and I'm part of that too. But okay, so you're going to look better, look younger, and live longer. What are you going to do with all that time? Right? Because you still have to live with yourself.
Yeah. You might look better.
So now you have more time with yourself.
Yeah. So
if you have 20, 30 extra years, it's 20, 30 extra years you're going to have to live with yourself. And if you don't have a robust spiritual life, and when I say spiritual, of course, I don't mean religion, just right? So like off the get-go, it's like we're not talking about religion, I'm talking about spirituality. So how much time are you spending on that?
Yeah.
And the answer is very little.
Also, a lot of the time, if you're not good inside, you could do anything physical. It still can constitute the physical by the mental not being right. Like you could still, every hack in the world is not going to make you feel good about yourself.
That's right.
And you could still not live that long anyway because you're driving yourself crazy, right?
That's
like
right.
With the wellness part.
That's right. And here in LA, even more so, if you're not good inside, you can do everything with the outside. A lot of people will still see you as ugly.
Yeah.
I mean, not as a judgment, but like, right? People with robust, strong, meaningful souls, meaningful insides are a lot more attractive, no matter how they look like. So imagine if you could put both of these, right? Because I'm sure you know people like that. You feel like, oh my God, they're so hot, they're beautiful, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they open their mouth and you're like, oop, it's gone.
Yeah. Well, in this job, I mean, meeting the most famous people in the world, you can sense when the spiritual aura is on.
Right. That's right.
And when it's not.
That's
you
right.
could sense it. It's a thing. We all have that, though,
That's
right?
right.
You said spirituality and religion. I'm curious that is it funny to you? Because we're in a world now where like people do recoil at even talking about it. That's why I wanted to have you on.
Right.
We, talking about spirituality, people I don't know if it's a fear or like let's not even deal with it. It's not like people kind of recoil when you mention religion. Have we just become so polarized with like man-made like things of religion that people don't want to brush on it what do you think on the outset?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few different parts of it. I think one that sort of for a lot of people, religion is traumatic. If you are not like everybody else, if you are neurodivergent or have a different gender or have a different way that you present to the world, or just if you're like a rebellious person, a contrarian, have many questions, definitely if you are somebody with a lower, we'll call it caste or status, right? Then religion might have in your life been really traumatic for you, right? If you constantly push to conform and be like everybody else. And then there is just that a lot of people don't know that there is a God, or if there's a God at all, or the God that they experience is not the God that they really feel, right? So that's another element. And 3, I think a lot of people feel like, I don't know what to say, because if I say religion, am I trying to get something from you? Am I trying to join, to convert you? So all these put together make people really recoil. And because spirituality and religion for so long has been sort of like kind of synonymous, people then recoil off spirituality as well. And part of my own work is to sort of show people that there's spirituality and the importance of spirituality without religion, right? Sort of like I've been accused of being a God killer many times
Really?
through this. Yeah, because I say like religion is a way to spirituality, absolutely, but it's not the way or the only way. So... And that'd be also think people spiritual. You think, especially here, like LA, whatever, but like you think, Buddhism or meditation. And I'm like, that's one part of like a whole, right? A whole vast universe of spirituality.
Right. What I like about you is it's what suits you. There's no rigidity, but it's also to get to a place where you have a spiritual relationship with whatever it is. Right. It's for us. It's for us figuring out what's best for us.
That's right.
And also, you're a good example. Like, I met you at a men's retreat in New Jersey. I didn't know what to expect, and I heard the lead speaker was a rabbi, and so, I painted a picture of you in my mind. Yeah. It was the polar opposite of how you are.
Yeah, it's not quite.
So you are a living example, though, of kind of breaking down stigmas of religion, probably, and spirituality. Is that part of your work, I think? Because, I wouldn't know you're a spiritual guy. I mean, maybe we just all judge each other, right? Yeah. You don't come off on how deep and informed and faithful and spiritual you are at first meeting.
Thank you.
And you want that, right?
I do. So here's the thing, right? Yes, right? Most people, right? I say I'm a rabbi, or people say I'm a rabbi, and they're like, this is not what a rabbi looks like, right? So... Which is fine because, right, there's a contrarian me that's sort of like, okay, I'll show you, right? Of like, I don't mind proving to people that there's a different way of doing things. Yeah. The second part is that I want to be the rabbi that I wish I had as a child. I want to be that person that if I saw me, I'd be like, oh, there's somebody like me. Yeah. And the third part, which is sort of, I think, true for a lot of spiritual people, whatever that is that the tattoos and things, they started off, when I think about it now, they started off as an armor. That is, I'm an empath. I feel a lot of things. I feel a lot of people. I think very deeply about a lot of things. I also think very shallow about other things, but a lot of deeply about a lot of things. And that sense that you said, like, oh, I don't know that this is a person. I don't know what they bring. I'm not sure that they're a spiritual leader. Sort of helped me sort of negotiate sort of how I can interact in the world. Because people stood away, and that's fine. And then I get to sort of like then make real connections because then it requires your effort. It requires my effort. Yeah. But also, I like for people to raise their eyebrows and be like, huh.
You strike me as like you like that you're a little different and you have to like prove to that. I don't have to prove, but like it's fun like, oh no, I'll back it up. You get to prove. It's interesting though. We all do that though. And even relationships, one thing I feel like I've learned in my years, like you have to meet people where they are. There's so much disconnect in this space we're talking about where it's like you're the expert on this high pedestal over here and I'm this I can't get stuff. You're right with people, you help people every day. I know you're a spiritual advisor for a lot of people. Right. You meet people where they are. It's part of the work, right? Right.
Yes. So I do a lot of spiritual counseling
which this is, by the way. You're here on the podcast.
Yeah, that's true.
And somehow I got this for free today because we're just doing it publicly. But that's what this is for me.
Great.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. I have the great privilege of helping people on their spiritual quest, right? And I'm a spiritual Sherpa. Right, so I walk in the back, right? For people, right, who know what a Sherpa is, it's sort of right the indigenous tribe that sort of you hire on your quest up the mountain, Everest, right? So the Sherpa for me is I walk in the back, right? It's not my climb, it's your climb. And I want to be helpful in this climb. And I want to be a spiritual counselor and help you figure out who you are, where you want to go, what's stopping you, right? From a deep internal process, not just sort of like a business coach or whatever. And so I get to do that with a lot of very different people, right? From really well-known people and rich people to people who have nothing and really need help sort of like in early stages of like recovery from addiction or stuff like that. So I do that and I love this work because it allows me to help people connect, and through that then connect to others, and through that then to really fight this sort of large epidemic that were so many of us are part of, which is the loneliness, feeling disconnected and lonely and lack of meaning and all that. And it's funny because, you know, people's like, oh, are you an expert at? And I, you know, it's a little sort of like silly, but I'm like, I'm not an expert at, I'm the experienced at. Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things I don't know, but I have a lot of experience with these things.
Yeah.
And so that gets me a chance sort of to kind of help people, right?
Sure. But you have like a tool belt. You have a approach that's unique that you can apply your teachings to get like
Correct.
What I learned from you in the weekend was like, here's the steps you can use that are practical. You called it practical, I think, right?
Practical, right? It's practical spirituality.
Yeah, because you said leading people to connectivity. For how many people you've worked with and the world we're in now, what gets in in your opinion, what do you think gets in the way the most? Like for us, like what gets in the way to us connecting as in this generation?
Right.
Is it technology? Is it so connected but alone?
No, it's not. It's not just technology. Technology can, but technology is a tool.
Right.
If you mistake the tool for a goal, then yes, then it can be. But it's not just technology. And I'm not one of those people that wants to blame, Instagram and social media and TikTok, whatever, or all these. Yes, they play a factor. But the most problematic is this sort of sense of the most toxic sentence in the English language is "I'll be happy when." I'll be happy when I get 1 million followers. I'll be happy when I get married. I'll be happy when I have a baby. I'll be happy when I have a Maserati. I'll be happy when I get my promotion. I'll be happy when I finish this degree. Whatever it is. When we say that, when we experience that, we do a few things. One, we've relinquished our choice to be happy now to some other factor outside of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And two, we've made it so that we'll never be happy because it's always a way. Instead of asking, what makes you happy now? Yeah. Right? But not just in the very shallow, like, oh, I want whatever. I want a donut. Sure, great. But the question of happiness is related to connectivity, like we said. Do I connect? Is there people in my life that I can see and be seen by them, right? Right, in that sense, sort of the sense of connection that we have to foster, we've lost that. And we pretend through social media and other things that maybe we have it, but we feel lonely, we feel disconnected because we're not really engaging in the thing that makes us vulnerable, open to each other, being able to say, I suffer or I have trouble, but also I want to celebrate this or celebrate that. Yeah. I brought up technology because the optics now, like you said, we're so afraid, at least for me, a lot of the time, to show our cards. Mm-hmm. We have this kind of presentational lifestyle. Right. That is new to the last 15, 20 years, where we're all just like, well, and even if it's not social media, even in your communities, you never want to appear... Right. There's this form of embarrassment and shame around falling off, and we all fall off. Yeah. But no one wants to tell. No one wants to show it. No one wants to show it. Nobody wants. Even people are afraid of being vulnerable. I just had a conversation with a client about friendship. It's like, can I call you a best friend? Can I call you a close friend? What if you don't feel that I'm your best friend? What if you don't feel I'm close? Yeah. Right. In a relationship, what if I say I love you and you don't say it back? Right. That basic thing, even friendship, is like the inability to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right? Even think about language, right? What's the ultimate, right? The ultimate accolade is like, you're cool. Right?
Yeah.
How, oh, okay, but how is that good? It's like, right? Wasn't like you're warm, you're nice, right? We create these sort of distances. So no wonder then we feel like I have to have this filter on in life or Instagram. I have to show you the watch I'm wearing or the car I'm driving, or even the now new spiritual brags of like, right? I'm doing this hack, or I have this pill, or I just did this thing that maps up my body, or like, you know, I know about my leaky gut or whatever. Oh my God! I mean, like we've. So you're not.
I know there's a self-righteousness to this topic, which is why I wanted to talk to you because you don't come off that way, even though you know so much. Right. But you know what I mean. There's people that kind of claim in religion, but also in the new world of optics of like, well, no, I understand it all and do this one thing I'm doing. But those people, the sad truth is, most of them are unhappy.
Most of them are unhappy.
It's like acting.
It's true. Most of them are unhappy.
Right?
Most of them are unhappy, and I know a lot of them.
And then now we're here to out all of them by name.
I could. I totally.
But yeah, it's no, because I think you walk the walk, and you're not selling anything other than us getting better for ourselves.
Correct.
Which is a beautiful job you have, but also rare in this field, I think.
Right. My job, if you want to call it that, but my job is to help people find who they are and create the best version of themselves. The gift that I was given, which is sort of the ability to see somebody's soul and the ability to sort of see and work with them on the hindrances to become the best version of themselves, is really what makes me happy and fulfilled. Right? I'm very privileged. I'm content. I'm happy. I've done a lot of work on myself. I've traveled the world. I've spoken with, gurus and lamas, and really, I've done a lot of work. I come from a very, that word, traumatized background, right? Abuse as a child. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I've went through, but it only makes sense. And when I have gratitude for it, it's because I'm able to then use that experience to help somebody else.
Right. That's where the work comes in, being of service to others.
That's right.
Do we have to suffer to grow? Like in this, like, that quote, suffering is a touchstone to growth, especially spirituality. Do you believe that? Because I always didn't like how I felt like it was like, oh, well, why do I have to like hurt to feel like I figure out what's right for me? But like, do you find that to be true, that sentiment?
So I think that coupling, to be honest, is wrong. I think that we suffer. Period. It's all of us.
It's not this then that.
Right. There's no right. And you can grow.
Yeah.
Right. And those two are next to each other. Yeah. Right. But we all suffer, and that's the thing that we constantly try to pretend that we're not. Yeah. Right. We all have that thing. It's part of the human condition.
Yeah.
Right. Who hasn't had heartbreak or loss or grief or disease or right? We've all just went through this pandemic all of a sudden, right? So like there's pain in life. And there's the opportunities to grow in life. And sometimes they're together and sometimes not.
It's a good time to be talking about everything though. I mean, I'm thinking about like generationally, you know, like our ages, and just like if you're 100 years ago, at least it's more accepted to be vulnerable with your peers now, right? And with men too. I was like with men, like even this conversation, like 5-10 years ago, I was in the clouds. I wouldn't even want to look on anything inside. I used to be so afraid of this type of stuff.
Correct.
Still am a little bit with you because I feel like you're seeing my soul, and you can just go, and I go, oh God, he said it. He said exactly what I'm trying to hide from the world.
Right.
But I'm saying it at least is a time to be so communicative and vulnerable and with your peers and
There's an opening.
More accepted.
Correct. There's an opening. For people who want to do the work, there's now an opening. Yeah. That there are spaces like the one we met at and people who work with people like me, there are openings to work on those vulnerabilities, on this openness, if you want to actually do the work and move forward, right? It's hard. And yes, I mean, I work best with men right? Because it is very gratifying to help my kind, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I work with women as well, of course, but to really help people and to be able to create these communities, whether they're sort of like temporary or longer lasting,
Yeah.
so that people can say like, I feel better. I feel better after spending a weekend.
Right. Yeah. It's a connectivity, right? And also, you don't feel. I mean, it's a trope of a phrase, but like you feel less alone when you're with
That's right.
all these people who are going.
The opposite of pain is not joy or pleasure. The opposite of pain is connection.
Yeah.
Right? The ability to connect and see yourself in others and experience the pain, right? It's like, think about this, that you're going through something, it's painful, loss or grief. There's always somebody who will be there and be like, oh, silver lining, at least you did this, or you have to be strong for that, or you have to, and I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
Right? The best thing I can say is like, hey, this sucks. I'm sorry. I'm here. I'm going to sit with you.
Yeah.
Right? Here's what I can offer you. Here, I'm going to do this, bring this, rather than like, don't hesitate to call if you need anything.
Right.
Oh my God, honestly.
Yeah.
Right?
Just be.
Just be.
with.
Allow
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Because when you do that with somebody, you really send a message to them that they have the strength within them to actually move forward. And it's not something that you know that they don't.
Yeah. Right. That's so. I mean, look, 3-4 years of my relationship with my wife. That's all it is
Right.
man. Well, here's this option. Here's this option.
Right.
Oh, that happened. Why not this? She'll get more mad.
Right.
Because I'm
Exactly.
providing solutions.
Right.
And finally, and maybe because of this work, like the past year, maybe I just go, wow, that's really hard.
That's really hard.
Period.
That's right.
But are we, and I don't want to make excuses for men, but like I do think, like, are we wired through history to be fixers, to kind of stunt everything we're talking about? Like, is there a inner wiring you think you have to rewire for men specifically? Or am I being too gender focused? Like,
No, I mean, no. Yeah, look, it's true. That sort of, yeah, we try to fix. We try to fix it for somebody,
Right.
But mostly because I think we try to fix it because we're uncomfortable with the feeling of the person next to us,
Yeah,
our
we're
wives,
avoiding.
our girlfriends. So in order to, because we don't want to talk about these feelings. So if I fix it, the feelings go away,
Yeah.
right? And then like, oh, I can go back to watching my TV and being left alone,
Right.
But it's not such a big rewiring as much as it is bringing awareness.
Yeah.
Because again, we feel those feelings too, right? And bringing awareness of like, you know how to not fix.
Yeah, and also it's pride and ego. Like as a man, if you could just sit there and go, I don't have the answer.
Right.
That's like removing
Right.
your pride and ego.
That's
But
right.
we want to have. There's this conditioning of like we are the answer.
Right.
We want to be the answer for
Right.
our people.
Yeah.
And growing up for me, or in general with most of my relationships, like that's a big part of where I get my joy, where I get my even my what's the word?
You get your
Purpose?
worth. You get your
Yeah.
worth.
Where I'm like, oh, I fixed this
I
thing
fixed
for you.
this. Look at me.
Look at me.
That's right.
I'm the best.
Right. And sometimes that's great.
Yeah.
And you want to be that, right? I have pride sometimes of working with people and they're like getting better, right? I help.
Yeah.
But it's important to also make sure that we understand how we approach that space, and how do we talk about it to other people and sort of to ourselves. But again, also to create that space for others of like, okay, that sucks. That's awful.
Yeah.
I'm here, right? It's again, it's sort of like a kind of like, right? There's being of service is not always fixing, right?
Right.
It's not always right. Being of service is to assess the situation and see what's needed here, rather than what you need to do here.
Right, and just being whatever it might
Yeah.
be. I like the lack of, like, there's no rigidity on that. And this is something that really stuck out when we did the retreat, was being of service versus like giving with expectations.
That's right.
basically. It's been in my head since I met you,
Right.
because when I'm giving and I want something in return, it always implodes.
That's right.
But when I'm just like, this is what I'm going to do. It's best for
That's right.
It's best for right now. It's
That's
not
right.
even for the other person. It's like, this is great to do for right now.
Right. Do
It's
the
helped me
next
a
right
lot.
thing. That's
It's
right.
helped me a lot, because
Oh, good.
damn, do I give and want trophies,
Yeah.
man. I want a celebration when I'm
That's
done.
right. Well done. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's natural to feel that way, right? But being of service, being able to do the next right thing, right? Because it's the next right thing, gives us our own peace of mind. It centers us in a different way, right? One of the years ago, different lifetime, I worked in finance, and there was a rule in the meetings, right? There was a rule in the conference room that you, before you say anything, you have to ask yourself 3 questions, right? Does it have to be said? Does it have to be said by you? And does it have to be said right now?
that's
Right?
wow.
And if the answer to one of them is no, then shut up.
Yeah.
Then don't say anything. Right? Only if it has to be said by you, and has to be said right now, then you can contribute. It's amazing how much how much it made the meetings more efficient. It made them more pleasurable, right? It made them shorter for sure. But also it centered everybody. I'm using that word a lot, but it centered everybody
I need it,
to
don't
be able to really ask themselves, like, why am I doing this thing?
Yeah.
Why am I speaking?
Yeah.
Do I want to be seen as wise? Do I want to be seen this? Do I want to contribute? Like, right? Do I manage up? Do I manage down? And when you take that into the interpersonal life, it creates somewhere like this sort of tool that you just get to listen. I don't have to speak. I don't have to say it right now. Maybe it doesn't have to be said at all. Can I just hear you?
Yeah. We all put our value. It's where you get your value. That's why I think what you teach and, having a strong spiritual life, you're not chomping at the bit for value in these meetings. Like, you know what I mean? Like in life, in relationships, I'm going to say something because I want to have value here. I want my purpose to be this. Like and I fall into this all the time, this job, but even my relationships, like, how many times I BS about something where I could just be like listening.
Yeah.
But, you should know I'm funny. You should know I do this. You should know I do that. We all, it's like we're like playing a video game. We're getting like coins of value from these little interactions with work, with everything. But it's not like eating the juicy steak. It's like just having fake ingredients at the end of the day.
That's right. Because you're not listening. You think about what you're going to say. Right? And it doesn't promote those things. So let's say, you just said this, right? And I worked about this with clients. So you want to choose 3 things you want to be known for. I want to be known to be funny. I don't want to be known to be, have business acumen, and choose one of my things. Before you speak, before you do, before you don't do, is it promoting one of these things? If it's not, then don't do it. Don't say it.
Shut up.
Right? And it's amazing what happens, because all of a sudden then people actually do start to notice you for the things you do say and do.
Yeah.
And I think especially for men, the ability to take that in and to not feel they have to perform all the time is so relaxing. They can just be.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying about the wiring in the brain, though, because we are, this, depending on the man, we size each other up and we give our stats almost. That was the best thing about the weekend with you is like, I'm a performer. I do this stuff.
Right.
I didn't feel like I had to be on at all, which actually made me look at myself. Do you know what I mean? Like when I'm, it's all this stuff, but we immediately, like resume, money, job.
That's right.
It's actually interesting because like, now that I do this work a little bit, it always pops up in my head sometimes when like you notice men now who say things right away.
That's right.
Like, oh, nice to meet you. Like, what do you do? Or like, oh, what do you got?
That's
or
right.
where are you at in your business? Or which look, all that stuff matters. I get it.
It does matter.
But it's not. It's like people need to advertise right away.
That's right. That's not connecting.
It's not real connection.
Correct. It's a different thing.
And that's what. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Maybe I should shut up. You just said like just shut up. Maybe I should.
No, this is the opposite of shutting up. This is a conversation.
My biggest fear on the podcast is you hear these podcast hosts who just talk over their guests the whole time. I actually do listen in this job. I even forgot what I was going to say. I think I was going to say about like just the advertising of men and what we do. Yeah. I lost it, so go ahead.
No, I just like, it's amazing what you can do, right? And a lot of the work that I really love is things that are like accessible, easy, and free, right? Right? You don't require another supplement or a pill, right? Sort of like it's just talking, a piece of paper maybe, and things. So, right, it's amazing when you ask somebody, for example, tell me a little bit how you spend your day. Or tell me about something you're looking forward to next week. Oh, tell me something that really amazing that happened in the last couple of days. Asking people when eventually they talk about they do, to say to them, how can I help you? just like that.
Yeah.
It's amazing what happens when you shift the conversation from the role that we play.
Exactly. We're all kind of
Right?
performing a little bit.
So, so how do I shift the role to role position, right? Doctor, patient, rabbi, student, right? Sort of like, right? Boss, underling, whatever, right? How do we shift that? And what happens when we go from role to role to soul to soul?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Right? How do I shift to who are you? And in the retreat and in the work that sort of that I do in that sense, right? And I'm sure you know, it's like I don't start with like tell me who you are and all, like it's great, but like it's not for me. Let's look at a text.
Yeah.
Let's study together.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation. After I say something, I want to create a pause. Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Like one of the men in that sense, they're like, oh, we've never had somebody who actually asked us in the middle of it, like, what do you think?
Right.
And I'm like, well, then it's a lecture. If it's a lecture, I can put on a video. You don't need me for that.
Right. There's no interaction. It's just
right
roles.
And a lot of the magic happens when you can interact with people and ask them real questions and then show yourself in that process.
Totally. The point I was going to say before was how on that weekend, speaking of acting and roles, I didn't know who anybody was,
That's right.
the jobs they do, how much money they have. And I remember thinking how rare it is to be in a group of how many men were there? Like
about 35, I think.
Didn't know a single thing about any of those buckets.
And you probably still don't.
Still don't, which is wild.
Which is amazing.
We know each other.
Yeah.
We know, but sort of. But that's the wild thing to me was like any other scenario in my life with a group of men like that. Like it's like, what do you do?
Right.
Where are you going? Show me the trophies.
That's right.
Or just like broy, like
That's right.
surfacey stuff. I'm so intrigued by the work you do.
Yeah.
That I feel like you also have. I know you're not an expert, but if you feel like you have the answers, like you when you ask you something, you have a good track, and it did come from study, right? Like you seem like you've studied all the faiths. You've studied.
I've studied all the
recovery.
faiths. I've studied all the faiths. I read all the time. Again, like I said, I traveled the world looking for truth. I was in India and Turkey and Rome and places. I've done a lot of journeys of all different kinds. Right? So like ate the food, drank the drink. You're
always seeking.
I'm always seeking. But more importantly, for the past 15 years or so, I worked in environments. I was director of spiritual counseling and I worked at a rehab. I worked in environments that people come to me at rock bottom. People come to me at crisis. Nobody comes to me, well, now it's changing, but nobody comes to me when they're thriving.
Right.
People come to me for help. So I created a set of practical tools, practical spirituality, ways to talk to people that helps them come out of those crises, come out of that pain, come out of being stuck, come out of that space that you feel that you've lost meaning. You can't make meaning anymore. Nothing is joyful. Nothing is meaningful anymore. When you lose the ability to make meaning, and this is true for people who have nothing.
Yeah.
As it is true for some celebrities I worked with, like household names that have everything.
Yeah.
And still feel like they're hollow inside.
Yeah.
So working with these people, right, for the past 15 years has given me a chance to understand how the human condition works, understand how people talk to themselves, understand what they can do in relatively easy ways. The work is not easy, but the tools are relatively easy ways for them to get better and feel better and be better and be more centered. And it takes the edge off and it allows people to find joy again and in their relationships, in their own relationship to the self, with their kids, in life. And it also, as so happens, helps a lot of people with their work.
Yeah, totally.
Right? With their work and solving moral injury or burnout, performance, right? So like I've helped a whole bunch of people to go from here to here.
That's awesome.
So it has a lot of kind of tentacles, but it fundamentally is the work of how do we see ourselves something larger than ourselves and how do we, again, make it robust to have a rich inner life.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm writing this thing, right? So sort of like conceptualizing this idea of the spiritual bank account? How do you invest in yourself? How do you deposit? What happens when you withdraw? Right? What is your spiritual bank account? And I work with people on that concept. And it's super helpful, as it turns out.
I love that you're talking about it in finance terms because because we are all. You made me think we were talking like, if you're not rich inside, you're not going to last in the life that you want.
It's amazing actually that people when their physical bank account dwindles, if you have a large spiritual bank account, you can actually move quote unquote funds.
Yeah.
When you feel that you have failed in life and you can't pay the mortgage or blah blah or everything or have no money, all these things, right? That if you have a spiritual bank account that's rich, if you've invested in working on it, you're able to feel so much better and actually not going to overdraft.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Yeah, because you have something stronger. Like money is physical.
Yeah.
We're talking about something not physical.
Yeah, and it's important.
It's important, of course, but it's a faith is what you're describing. Like, oh, wow, I can't afford this. I'm at rock bottom, like people you work with.
That's right.
And I've been here as well. And you go, all right, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I'm not alone in this and I can do it. It's knowing, it's like a faith maybe.
Right. I know it's a hope, it's a faith, and it's work. You can do it. So I can't afford this, but now you know the work. This is the beauty.
Yeah.
So question, do I need this?
Yeah.
Right? Versus do I want this? Secondly, if I really want this or need this, right? What do I need to do to get there? Right? So you know the work.
Yeah.
And then, okay, what do I do to make sure that I can get there without thinking that that's what's going to give me worth?
Yeah.
And those are very powerful questions for people when they want to move forward, right? I've spoken with Olympians with medals, psychology coaches for large soccer team, whatever. I keep speaking with a lot of people because I'm very curious and I love sort of this work. And there's always a theme about understanding that the real, we'll call it struggle, but the only competition is with yourself. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I'm always interested in that. Like, what do you say to yourself?
Yeah.
When you are running the last few miles and you're exhausted, when you're on the podium, right, in the Olympics, getting a medal, what do you say to yourself? How do you go from number 2 to number 1, right? Or number 100 to number 99, whatever it is. That conversation that people have in their head, that is where I'm fascinated and I can work with people on the inner voice that allows you to find a self-worth.
Yeah, that inner voice is hard to maintain the consistency, and it could really go up and down depending on so many factors, in life and mood and sleeping and relationships.
But there's
and
ways
it really
to fix
isn't
it.
it just our child? Isn't it just like the kid in us?
It's one of the kid is one of them inside.
I feel like that
but you can fix that. You can work with that. You can fix your sleep. You can fix your feelings of worth. You can find meaning in life. You can find people that understand you. Right? You can end toxic relationships. There's so many things that you can actually do.
Yeah, we have so many choices that we think we don't. Especially when you are in these places of not being in a good spot.
That's right.
We immediately take out our own power in a way.
That's right.
Right?
Right.
That's something you said to me too. I really like my own power, and
that's right.
Something that stuck with me from the weekend.
Your
as well.
own sovereignty. I talk a lot about that. So the sovereignty, right? How do you choose? Right? A lot of people will say, "I don't have a choice," but that's not true. That's a lie. What they really mean is, I don't want to pay the price for my choices.
Right. It's I'm more comfortable not paying the price. It's comfort.
Right. Or I don't want to do it. Right. So don't lie to yourself. Yeah. You have a choice. You can walk out from right here, drain your bank account, and go to Costa Rica.
Let's go.
Right? You can, right?
Yeah.
Don't threaten me with a good time. But you can do that. Yeah. But that would mean that, right, your wife, your children, right? It's or you can go and, I'm not advising for it, slap the face of the first person you don't like how they look like on the street. You can do that. You'll go to prison.
Yeah.
But so let's not, I'm very much about the precision of language for the self, not the woo-woo PC thing, but let's not pretend that I have no choices. I have choices.
Right.
And those choices have consequences.
Yeah.
Right? And when you are able to understand that sovereignty and the consequences of your choice and take action, that's true for the micro as well, for how you sleep and how you spend money and how you spend your time and how you schedule. And all these things are practical spiritual tools that you can do, from making your bed in the morning to texts that we can read together that will blow your mind.
Right. One thing I love too about your work that I think is interesting is you really focus on moving forward. I feel like a lot of times with therapy and certain forms of certain work on yourself, we really can take the past and use it to make maybe, I don't want to say worse choices, but like there's what's the word? There's like it's more common.
Excuses?
Yeah, there's a commonality with when people say they work on themselves, like to focus and obsess over the past. And then it doesn't always mean it's going to be good for a fruitful moving forward. And your work, you're kind of like, everything happened to you, but then like, here's how you can move forward in life.
Correct.
Right? You know, because I don't love the past stuff.
Right.
I mean, we have to talk about it.
We do. But so here's where I get into trouble. Right?
I want you to get in trouble today. That's why I brought it up.
Here's where you get into trouble. I've helped thousands of people, right? Both in the rehab scene and without.
Yeah.
99.9% of them all come with vast years of therapy.
Right.
Of clinical therapy, psychologists, psychiatrists. Great. Awesome. For me, not my thing. And not because I don't believe in it. There's things, right? There's a lot of sort of like psychiatry and psychology that's important. There's some medication, right? There's some medical stuff that I don't want to take away from the thing. Absolutely. But by and large, right? And I'm making generalizations. Therapy looks backwards, like you said. It looks at your trauma, your mother, what happened, your narrative, your truth, how you... Great, awesome, if that works for you. For most of my clients, it doesn't work. I don't find it that useful in general. However, the difference between that and what I'm trying to do, spiritual counseling, is look forward.
Yeah.
Okay, you have your story. You have your traumas. You have your narrative. Fine, but what are you going to do tomorrow?
Yeah.
And how is it going to be different than today?
Yeah.
If you want things you've never had, you have to do things you've never done.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. You get stuck in that.
If you get stuck in that narrative,
response, whatever it is.
But it's my truth. Oh my God. I mean, sure. But how about we move from it's my truth, it's my trauma to, okay, what are we going to do forward? One of the fundamental moments in my own personal sort of spirituality and work is a very difficult question. If I think about the proper physical abuse I had as a child, and ask myself honestly, how is this the best thing that's ever happened to me? Just as an experiment. Take your pain, perhaps your biggest sources of pain. How is this the best thing that's ever happened to you? Not to excuse what they did, not to wish it on anybody else, God forbid, all that. But the answer to that may in fact surprise you, because for me it was like, I would not be able to do this work without that. What I understand about pain and the human condition and abuse and again, this word trauma, right, allows me to do something forward, not to be stuck in a place of feeling of no worth or why did they do this to me and blah, 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 all that.
Yeah.
There's room for that, for sure. But for me, spiritual counseling is about looking forward. So therapy, right? If it works for you, great, no judgment. But most of the people I work with, I can help in spite of their therapy. I'll say it that way.
I wonder if there's like a new word, because in a way, like you could say what you do is therapy in a different sense. So you just don't look backwards.
No, but look, just both for disclaimers, I'm not a therapist. I have no clinical work. I'm not licensed as a therapist. This is not the work I do. What I'm doing is spiritual counseling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Spiritual sherpaing. Right? My job as a rabbi, as a spiritual leader, is to talk to you about the essence of who you are, not just the experiences that you've had.
Right.
I'm seeking to know what you want to do next.
Right.
What's tomorrow look like for you?
And your point in therapy is it, and I see it this way too. In some ways, is it's kind of a wheel that spins one way and it continues to go like this happened to me and then this, and then It's going like this. It's going.
Right.
It's a backwards wheel
Right.
instead of the wheel eventually turning.
Right.
Although it should turn, I think. But
Sure, but especially like people who've been in therapy for like 20, 30 years, 15 years with same therapist.
Look,
Illuminate me, right?
I know,
think, right?
I know.
I'm sure for some it's great. Again, I don't want to be judgmental about this, but
I love this.
but it's not. I don't know. Like I feel like I know many people who sort of like have the same conversation or version of the same conversation over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, and then sometimes they come to me and like 3-4 sessions in, and I give them homework and they have to do things,
yeah.
and if they don't do it, we talk about why they don't do it, like right. And they're like, oh, wow. Like, I get to, and again, because my work or the work that we're seeking, and I think especially also for men, is work of meaning.
Right. Yeah. I think the thing that I stuck out for therapy that what I can respect for as a man is the space, like, so what we have together because of this work. But with therapy, I could see that some people, it's the space to feel vulnerable with no strings. I'm paying for this. You're not going to be conditional. You're not going to take this information. And
Correct.
I'm therapy. I mean, like,
correct.
That's
great, and that's great.
I understand.
That's great.
But I like the fact you're like practical. Also, you say things that, we don't really always want to hear. I don't know if therapists say things we want to hear, but what strikes about me is like you say some stuff. I'm like, dude, I didn't want to hear that, but that's what I needed to hear.
I'm a mirror.
Yeah,
I'm an HD 6K, mirror. I will show you what you are, where you are, without any blur.
Yeah,
you can do with it as you want. And again, about the space in therapy. The space in therapy, in that sense, to be seen and heard and vulnerable, super important. Great.
Right.
My question is always, and then what?
Yeah, right. Because you can just have that space all the time.
Because if you're stuck in that space, it becomes just that, a stuck space.
Yeah.
That's really important. Like really super. I don't want to be cynical at all about this. It's super important to be seen and heard. But then what?
Yeah.
You can't just stay in that space.
Yeah.
I think.
You got to be careful, man, because, like if you go after big pharma, like big psychology is going to come after you. And as you get more popular, they're going to be like,
exactly.
This guy's too good.
I think there's a few other people who are like more. But look, but I get, for example, when people start working with me, I say to them, it's usually a kind of 6 to 9 month sort of process.
Yeah.
After 9 months, I'd like for you to have enough progress to move forward. I don't want to be a spiritual counselor for somebody their whole life. There'll be check-ins and I have relationships, absolutely. But as the intense work, the weekly, whatever intense work, it's a 6 to 9 month program. And then you, for lack of a better term, you graduate, you move on. You have the tools now, right? And throughout as well, live your life.
That's also refreshing too. A part of my judgment, like the old school Italian judgment on therapy is like, I think of Tony Soprano all the time, but he's throwing money at her. He's like, you just want my money, Right. But that is a funny part of it too, obviously, where it could be 10, 15 years of the...
Right. There's an exchange, right?
Yeah.
Sort of like... and right, like I'm not going to build another house based on on sort of thing. Right. It's not also, job security.
Yeah, but is it kind of messed up though? Like, they're actually doing a lot better, but like I want to, I want to make more money.
That's
so
what I think.
Keep them going.
That's right. And again, this is more than privilege. Is sort of I want to do this work. I want has to have a fair exchange of values.
Of course.
But fundamentally, if I feel that we're done and I can't help you, I will not take your money.
Yeah. That's
like
great.
And I'm in a great position to be able to do so. And I understand some people are not.
Right.
But I won't do it.
That's
and
awesome.
if we can work together, I'll say I won't do it. There's also a certain sliding scale. And there's also things that, again, like, right, when I'm asked to do, and if I feel called to it, like some retreats, right, you do it even though financially, let's say, it's not the most lucrative.
Right. Yeah, you do things that
you do things.
Your message,
Again, you do things out of service.
Right.
I really try and be of service in a way that sort of that doesn't build resentments, right? So sort of like just to be used, right? And again, it's part of the spiritual bank account, right? What can I afford to spend, and how do I get? So for a spiritual retreat, let's say I get X, right? And that's a good investment, right? Then I have more, right?
Yeah.
So because I don't want to overdraft it. So it's really important for me to talk to people, see that there's alignment, and then see what we can do together.
Totally. It feels like a superpower too since meeting you, but in general, when I know what's best for me and what isn't,
that's right.
And I can know clearly.
That's right.
it's like so liberating, but it's so hard to keep that at the front of your decisions all the time. Like you see my guy, you have it here all the time.
Yeah, you have to remind yourself.
And you have to connect. But
That's right.
when I'm connected like this, I know.
Right.
But a lot of the times life goes on, you get distracted. I like that your practical work was like, it's kind of a daily maintenance.
It is a daily maintenance.
To know like what's good for me, what isn't, what's in my control,
That's right.
what's not.
But it's the same thing as food.
Yeah.
Right? Of reminding yourself, I want the oatmeal and not the, I don't know, home fries. Or, right? It's the same thing about with the gym, right? You can't just like go once a week all of a sudden and think like, oh, that's going to be enough, right? And same thing with this. I mean, I always ask them like, okay, so how are you going to remind yourself? And it could be as easy as a Post-it on your door.
Yeah.
But the opposite of forgetting is not remembering. Because remembering is not an active thing. The opposite of forgetting is writing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's an
Reminders.
action. You have to take an action, right?
Yeah.
And I love the fact that in this conversation with you, we've actually done work together, right? In this thing, right? It's not sort of not talking to somebody who hasn't seen this work in action.
Yeah.
Right? The sort of that when you're able to help people center, understand, get something out of it for themselves, then you can see how powerful the work can be.
Right. That's why I love having you on here, because it just seems very real. I even told you after the retreat, I had some conversations with friends and it just didn't seem real. Like there was no, and that happens a lot, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
But even in this job, and like you're talking about, optics, I'd rather at this point in my journey be real with people. And that is the work for me as a comedian, as an interviewer. But like, we all want this realness.
Yeah.
We're all kind of scared of this. But this feels refreshing to me. I'm like, say it all. But just don't tell everyone like my soul exactly. That's my fear.
That's between you and me.
Good. That's off camera.
That's off camera.
Because that's what would scare me the most.
No, but that, it's funny. I think about them a lot. I would never betray you or anybody for that matter, because I hold a lot for people. Right? Part of my job, part of my own thing is to be able to hold your soul, your secrets, things people tell me, things, how people feel. And I get to see sometimes how they put the mask on. And I know what they're actually thinking about.
Yeah. And
many times I walk in a room and I can go and sense, again, this is part of my own gift, like I can tell who's happy and who's not, who's thinking about, it's not reading your mind, but I can sense what's going on with people by the way they talk, by the way they interact with me. And that's why for me, it's a gift, because when I start sitting down with people, 5 minutes in, I know who they are. Yeah,
you can read it.
I can read it. I don't need 20 sessions, right? I made it a few sessions to create safety so that I can tell you what I think. But it comes very quickly.
Yeah, it's your gift. It's seeing people and meet, like I said earlier, meeting them where they are, though. Really having the humility, the vulnerability to just be there and present and feel it. But that's your gift for us, and for us to get to where we want to go,
Right. But my big message is that sort of there's ways to fix what's wrong with your life that are not as hard as you think they are.
Right.
And there are ways to connect. There's ways to be seen. This is the thing that sort of pains me personally, is when I look at the world, when I look at society, when I look at this sort of pain and loneliness and disconnect and strife and all this, and I'm like, there are ways to be better. There are ways to fix this. And we keep, as a society or in general, choose the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, just listen to me. Like, right? I feel like, right? This is my own ego. It's like, I need 2 weeks with society.
Yeah, you're good.
But the only thing I have is working one-on-one with people.
Yeah, of course.
But we have thousands of years of wisdom. Right. I didn't invent this. Right. I'm a theologian. Right. I'm a spiritual scholar of like learning and reading and still growing myself, and just trying to help people. Like, if I can create enough people we can create some change, some real change.
Yeah.
And I'm not like utopic, but just for people to feel more better.
Yeah. It's so interesting though, because it's not a quick fix, but it is easy. That's the weird thing about this work. It's not a quick fix, but it is easy if you have the tools
and the inclination. Right.
Yeah.
If we want to do this.
Well, we're sold the quick fix for everything. I mean, everything is easy.
There's a pill
money.
for that. There's an app for that.
Everything is
right. You're too fat, there's a pill or injection for that. You're too skinny, there's a pill for that. You're too, right? Like there's a pill for everything, and that's part of the pathologizing of the human condition.
Yeah.
Right. You're too happy, there's a pill. You're too sad, there's a pill. You're too high, you're too low. Right. You're too fat, you're too skinny. There's always something that we've pathologized the human condition. We pretend there's a normal.
Right.
There is no normal. Nobody is normal. This is one of the most infuriating things, that we compare ourselves to something else, right? Compare and despair. We compare ourselves to others all the time.
Yeah.
And there is no normal.
Yeah.
And I know some of the richest, most famous people in the world, they're miserable. They are miserable. I know this because I know them personally.
Yeah.
They're miserable.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be.
Yeah.
Right. And it drives me crazy because and again, I don't want to dismantle everything. I consume reality TV like everybody else. I love it. I like fashion. I'm not sort of like sitting in some ashram being like, you have to live within the world that you are. Right. And it's a shift from an either or to a both and.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
You can be both, and you have to have your light side and your dark side. You have to have shadow work and your light work. You have to be able to talk about the highest levels of consciousness, but also enjoy the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, which I do.
Yeah, that's funny because I don't do reality TV, but I have my other binges that are ridiculous. By the way, we did go through your phone before this episode, and we cut to every celebrity in this moment on screen that you work with.
Oh, great.
So we can out them for you.
That's amazing.
And everyone's excited to see who was so miserable.
You
heard it here
Call me,
first.
I'll tell you.
You heard it here. But no, that's why I love this work, man. That's why I wanted to have you here. It's obviously it's one day at a time, but you're connected to a level of practicality that is so it's been so beneficial to me because I just see it this way. There's a delineation that's just cleaner. Where I'm like, A to B is a lot cleaner in my mind about what's best. And I like the Serenity Prayer a lot to go into like the control idea.
Right.
Because that's another part of this that you're sort of describing. If you have all the money in the world, like the illusion of control is so real, especially when you're successful or you do things that you manipulate things and they work in what you want to get out of them. We give ourselves like this, like we are our own gods. That's a kind of a dumb thing to say, but we give ourselves like this like control that seems like it works sometimes, and that's what messes us up.
Correct.
Messes me up a lot.
Correct. You can't control shit. You can't control shit.
But we think we can.
We think we can.
Yeah.
Because we think that the present, right? We have this illusion of the present, right? The present is this constructed thing. This is what we think was going to happen in the next X amount of time.
Yeah.
But, right, like, right now, right, there's this huge solar flare, right? So, like, right, mass corona ejections, right? G5 storms, like really, like we've never seen anything like it. The closest storm was 20 years ago. It's messing up, electricity and satellites. Last time it happened, which was way smaller, right? One of the companies lost 40 satellites.
Whoa.
In this thing. So, right, you thought when you woke up on Friday, it's like, oh, things are going to be fine. And all of a sudden, something else can happen. So, and the past is just what happened, and the future is unknown. This sense of illusionary control that we have, we keep trying to put it on everything in our life. And if we just teach ourselves to let go, not of all of it, but to let go of some of it, right? Because you still have some. You have to go to work, you have to do this, right? You have to do the chores. But if you let go just a little bit, enough to be able to just hold it and observe it and observe yourself, you'll discover that thing in serenity, which is, again, do I have to do it or not?
Yeah.
Right? How do I make these decisions?
Your choices.
The choices. And we talked before about that once you find a certain amount of equanimity in that sovereignty, you've created a path inwards that allows you to regulate much better, right? So here's the thing. When we think about our physical self, right, there's stress tests, right? Like you go, they put the electrodes, they do a stress test on you. What most people think is like, oh, how hard can you go and run and things. That's not what the stress test is. The stress test is how far you go and then how quickly do you go back to baseline. If your heart rate is X amount and then you push it, right? The best health is how quickly you go back to baseline when you doesn't. People with poor health takes a long time to go back to baseline. People are good at, right? So same thing with our spirit. You can get frazzled. Something can happen. Something can trigger you. Death, whatever, bigger or smaller. How quickly you go back to baseline. How quickly you go back to centered. How less triggered you are, or how less reactive you are to the situation the next time.
Yeah.
That's the real spiritual work.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, it's the voices in our head
That's right.
that really help us navigate sort of all those things. And what I love too is like just the space to be like, this is happening.
Yeah.
Or this is what is.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times like the inner voice can be fixed, or don't feel this, or appear this way, or like we've been talking about. But
People
that
don't
kind
know.
of looseness that you're allowing, you're like, it's like an allowance of reaction and
Yeah.
the choices we have. The choices are in our control.
Right.
But sometimes it's, I'm a reactive guy. I mean, the reactions can be really tough too.
But that's the difference, right? Between your trigger, between the trigger or the craving, whatever, right? We usually react. The real secret is to respond. But respond needs space between the stimulus and your respond. If you ask yourself, how do I react? Which is like, oh, this makes me angry. This takes me to the bottle. Right? And say like, okay, this time I'm going to think about how I want to respond instead of react.
Yeah.
That's where spirituality lives.
Yeah.
In that space, you create enough between the stimulus and what you respond to life, not what you react.
Yeah, yeah.
The reaction is everything you bring in. Response
Knee-jerk,
is a space of like of that awareness. Oh, I can choose something else.
Yeah.
I don't have to always get angry. I don't have to go to the fridge. I don't have to go to the alcohol. I don't have to go to sex, or I don't have to self-soothe with validation or DMs or or porn, all these things that we do to self-soothe ourselves.
Yeah.
When you are able to create a space for responding rather than reacting, that's when you have practical spirituality, right?
You're talking about just being uncomfortable too.
Yeah.
Because a lot of reactions and triggers are
That's right.
us, like you just said, it's avoiding uncomfortability and numbing when you are.
That's right.
I mean, that's basically everybody's addiction.
All of
That.
us.
We all. I mean, I'm guilty of it. I don't want to feel that. I want to feel something else.
I have an old mentor who used to tell me, she was in this field of recovery, and most people we say you don't have to be an addict to be in recovery, but she's much more truth-telling and harsher, and she says you're either in recovery or you're in denial.
Right.
Because we all have these maladjustment, self-soothing mechanisms that we have to think about. And some of them are just fine. Again, have to talk about shadow self, because sometimes it's not just being a good boy. There's no such thing in the world for me of like, just be a good boy or just be a good girl. That's a lie. It's awful. It's toxic. Terrible, right? But so we have to pay homage to our shadow self. But the question is how we do this. And the response thing is a huge thing, right? I may choose to have that piece of cake, but I know what it stands for.
Yeah.
Rather than like thinking, it's going to be okay.
Yeah. What does it say about my personality? Like, I really want to pick a fight with you to see like because I just imagine you in fights in your life just being like, this is a response. You're so ready to have you're just in touch with it.
Yeah, but also I've done Muay Thai for 15 years,
Oh, shit.
so sure, come at me. Let's see. I'm not.
I'm at a mental fight. You're already.
Oh, I'm both, but yeah.
I don't really want to fight you, but I mean, like,
Yes,
I think I can see how you apply this stuff in your real life, and because you're saying you're giving permission for everyone to have real reactions.
That's right. That's right. Because I want to interact with that. I'm much more interested in your real reaction when you pick up a fight or whatever, and seeing why you're upset, or why it would upset me, rather than like pretend like everything's okay.
Yeah. Well, look, what I know from being in a marriage for a while and all my close relationships, like we just all want to be seen or heard. Like, and what you're allowing is exactly that. I will respond because I will see and hear you, or I see and hear myself, and I do something with it. Versus like, I'm responding, I'm reacting, boom, boom.
That's right. That's right.
9 times out of 10, that's all conflict resolution is to me. It's like, I see you, I hear you. Right.
I mean, again, right? It's if you want things you've never have, you have to do things you've never done, and accompanied with like the right definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Yeah.
Right. So if you always take a right, if you always go to anger, you'll always end up in the same place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how about you be brave and put your big boy pants on, and let's deal with why you're feeling the way you're feeling. Let's deal with why you're reacting this way, right? And let's choose way. But then let's say, how do I remind myself? right? How do I remind myself that? When I work with people in early recovery, for example, from addiction, I give this example. You know how like you're on a budget and you're trying to eat healthier. When you go to the grocery stores, there's two ways to do this. You can go to the grocery store hungry and without a list, and you will for sure buy things you don't need, can't afford, and shouldn't eat. 100%. You can go to the grocery store after you've had a meal and with a list. And you'll probably won't buy things that you can't afford or don't need to eat.
Right.
Same action of going to the grocery store, but how you attacked it, how you approached it is very different. So same thing, right? If you decide ahead of time, right? Here's a tip. If you decide ahead of time, how are you going to react when your mother calls you if she triggers you? Right? You have social anxiety, you're going to a bar or you're going to a party. Decide ahead of time how long you're going to spend there and be rigid about it. Decide ahead of time, what are 3 things that you want people to know about you from there? I want them to know that I was just on a podcast. I want them to know that my daughter lives in LA. And I want them to know that, I don't know, that I am planning to run a marathon. Let's pretend. You now know how long you'll be there. You've taken away this idea of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And this social anxiety will subside because you can control it. You have sovereignty.
Yeah,
You've chosen your response.
Your own expectations for
That's
yourself.
right. That's right.
And it's within your control. Like you
That's
said.
right.
Yeah, it makes
and
it.
we because of going willy-nilly everywhere and we're like, I don't know. Like,
we have more sovereignty, like you say, than we really let
That's right.
on. Because a lot of victim thinking, whatever it might be, situational, growing up, you know.
And it's okay to feel the way you feel. Everybody has social anxiety. Yeah. Everyone. Everybody's been in a room feeling lonely. Everyone.
Yeah.
But, right, it's the old thing like imagine everybody naked, right? That's the core of it. Imagine everybody is vulnerable as you
Exactly.
are. Right? Although it has got me into trouble imagining people naked in the room. But, you know,
well, you're in LA
as an
too.
aside. Exactly.
That's a whole club here.
Exactly. There's actually places where everybody is naked. But...
That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, wait long enough, everybody will get naked.
Right. What we might hear is so hot.
Right. Or they just everybody walks in and like they're not wearing anything.
Oh my
but
God.
right. It's that old line from is it Clueless? Right.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of like, are you going to put anything on it? Yeah. But I do think that sort of that. When we're able to respond, when we're able to spend time with ourselves, understanding what we want, we do get a chance to find that equanimity and find that path inward that says, like, I'm okay.
You're okay, yeah. You kind of helped me. I know how to end this interview, which is the question you've kept bringing up and you just brought up now, and I'm curious what your 3 things are that you want people to get from you. If you could say the 3, because you kept saying, what's the 3 things you want? Like, do you know yours? What would yours be for the world here that we're promoting that you could share, the 3 things you want people to know of Rabbi Iggy?
So it's funny because I do, but I stole them from Buddha. but they are true in the way that they are modern. That is, there is pain, there's suffering, everybody's suffering. Right? I want you to know that everybody goes through shit.
Okay.
Number 2, you can alleviate some of that pain. Right? That you have control over some of that pain. You're not a victim, or you might be a victim, but you're not living in victimhood if you don't want to, right?
Okay.
You have a chance to actually do something that makes your life better. And the third thing is, I can help you.
There you go. That's so great.
Yeah.
I could so many nuggets of wisdom with you. I could sit with you all day.
Yeah, me too.
And I also am appreciative that you came here to do this before you go on to do TED Talks and conferences. I just know with the work you do I could see that for you.
Thank you.
So we got you early, dude. Remember this.
Remember when?
Bring me backstage at
No,
your
you
talks.
and I, you know that. You and I are tied for life.
But I do want to say also, do you see that for yourself as well? Is continuing to spread this message?
Yes.
You know, maybe weekends like we had on a bigger scale. I can see all that for you.
Yes. I like I said, I don't need it, but I want it because I understand now that there's things that I can actually help people with.
Right.
And I'd like to do more, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't happen, let it be really clear. I'm perfectly happy.
Right.
Right. I know who my people are. I know what I'm doing. I'm perfectly happy to do one-on-ones for the rest of my life.
Sure.
But I also have a chance, and I know to do something bigger, and I need to find the way that feels right for me to do it.
Well, you're very clear on your calling and your
Yeah.
gift, and you're going to find ways to use your gift
Right.
more and more, which is what we all are trying to do. Honestly, we are all trying to live our callings in a healthy way.
That's right.
And not an ego way, but in a way that
there's an old sort of like text that sort of I read a long time ago that said something around the sort of you have a task to do, and you have to do it even if somebody else is better suited for it. It's still your task.
Yeah.
Right. And I was always struck by that. It's like, oh, this is what my voice is, and it will take me as far as it needs to take me.
Totally.
But I can't cease from the work just because somebody else might be better at it.
Right. Well, we all get lazy in our heads and we go, it's been done.
That's right.
Yeah, there's that. There's this.
That's right.
But I'm me, you're you, and there's room for us to do what we do for the world.
That's right.
Whatever that might be.
And when you do that, when you're able to do it for yourself and be authentic about it, right? I go to bed at night sleeping very soundly, knowing that I've done something for the world that day, right? That sort of I've done something for my family, I've done something for myself, I've done something for the community, and I can go to bed at night sleeping really soundly that I know that I've tried my best today.
Totally. Well, that's a great example, man. You're such an inspiration. I'm glad we got to hang out and connect here.
Yes.
I feel like it was just my therapy for an hour, guys. Thanks. I'm glad you got to listen in on it. Make sure you follow Rabbi everywhere too.
So Instagram, Not Your Rabbi.
Which
Not
is the best
Your
name
Rabbi.
Ever. I love it.
Right? I guess should have been Not Your Typical Rabbi, but it's Not Your
It
Rabbi.
works. It's
Instagram. And my website, RabbiIggy.com.
Awesome,
2 eyes.
man.
RabbiIggy.com.
Well, it's amazing to hang with you here. Thank you for taking the space and
Thank
time
you.
to connect with me. I feel bright and connected because of this.
Yeah, it is.
That's the goal, isn't it?
That's right. When you really bring yourself and you bring what you do best, right? You talking to people and interviewing and helping people, yeah.
I appreciate it, man. Guys, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. Goodbye, everybody. This episode was brought to you by Barefoot Dreams, the comfiest products I've ever felt. They're celebrating their 30th anniversary right now. There's no surprise why they've been on like Oprah's favorite thing list for this many years in a row. I don't even know how many they have, but they got the Oprah credit. I think that's pretty legit. They have a great integration going on right now with Team USA, with Disney, products you can wear, products you could sleep with, pillows, blankets. Look at this blanket right here. I mean, it really is crazy. This cozy chic fabric is the comfiest stuff I've ever felt. Make sure you check them out. And because they're part of this season, you can put the promo code POPUP15 for 15% off your first purchase at barefootdreams.com.